Hello again, as you know, I am Eli the Computer Guy, and today's class is Introduction to Video Game PCs. So Lenovo decided to send me over one of their video game PCs so that I could play around with it and take a look at it. And I thought, what if I did a class talking about these video game PCs from a more normal person's perspective, right? Because in the modern world, basically, whenever there's a discussion about video game PCs, it's all taken over by these insane video game PC fanboys, right? There are these people that want bigger, better, more, faster. I'll spend $3,000 on my computer. I don't care, Eli, as long as I get the best FPS possible. And then, there's a lot of us out there that, we have day jobs and we're more normal people, and we like to play our StarCraft 2 every once in a while. And so we want a video game a system that will be able to play those video games pretty well, but we don't necessarily need to be surrounded by 4K displays all pumping all this information into our heads, right? So when I talk about video game PCs today, you do have to realize that that is the viewpoint on this that I'm coming from. If you are a video game aficionado and you've got thousands of dollars in your pocket to blow on a video game machine and you know exactly what you want, this is not the class for you. This is the class, again, like I say, you're in your 30s, you want to do your Word, you want to do your Outlook. Oh, hey, you also want to play video games. That's the type of person that I'm trying to talk to with this class. So the first thing that comes up whenever we talk about video game systems is desktop or a laptop. So should you go with a desktop video game system or a laptop video game system? Now in the normal world, everybody is going to laptops, right? Even for things like video editing, you can go out and buy a MacBook Pro or you can buy a very powerful laptop. So most people are going to buy laptops. Now this is the one place where I would argue is not the place for laptop computers if you want a good video game system. The reason is most of the video games, in order to play them well, you have to have a very good graphics card. So the graphics card has something called a GPU on it. It's called a graphics processing unit. That GPU is a very specialized processor, and all it does is basically create the graphics for you to look at. So in modern video games, whenever you're looking around a scene, that's basically a very complicated mathematical problem. So the faster that mathematical problem can be solved, the better graphics you're going to get, the smoother transitions are, so on and so forth. The issue is that you need much more power out of your graphics card to play video games than you do to use Outlook or even play videos or any of that kind of stuff. So in order to save money on laptops, to save power consumption, that type of thing, most laptop computers have very inferior GPUs on them, so that basically, again, they can show you videos very well, streaming video, but when you go to play video games, they're going to be rather poor. Now, if you go out and you buy a specialized video game laptop, the issue is, well, then they become pretty bulky and heavy. And what I found is a lot of the video game laptops out there are more what I would call portable computers versus actually being laptop computers, if you get what I'm saying. It's like, yes, you can close them up and you can heft them around, but they're not going to be some like 4 or 5 pound lightweight thing. They're going to be pretty massive things. So overall, I would say if you want a system to be able to play any kind of modern video games with, go for the desktop computer. It's going to be less expensive. It is going to work better. Overall, you're going to be happier for it. The next question that comes up if you want to gain a system so you can play video games is, do you buy or do you build your system? So that's the thing. So everybody who plays video games, I want to build my own computer. And that's really up to you. I mean, really, again, with the whole question about build versus buy nowadays is that if you build it yourself, you can get exactly what you want. It will probably be less expensive and it will be more powerful. Those are all very good things. On the other hand, if you build it yourself, you have to worry about parts being dead on arrival. You have to worry about buying the incorrect parts. So you see that a lot. You'll buy the incorrect RAM accidentally, and then you might get stuck with with RAM, and then you may just screw something up when you're putting it all together. So whether you're going to build or buy, that's really up to you. What I would argue is if you're going to buy a system, that you buy from a reputable vendor, or at least a vendor you find reputable. I won't say any names. I would say stay the hell away from HP. But beyond that, find a manufacturer that you trust. The reason being is that some of these manufacturers are a little wonky on the parts. They don't necessarily use the best parts out there. And especially when you're playing video games, if there's any problems, that can just cause you nasty issues while you're playing video games. The other thing is if you're going to be buying or if you're going to be building your gaming machine, the two things that I would say to make sure that you do is make sure you buy a very good quality power supply. Now, this is one of those things people always go cheap on, and it's a very bad thing to do, especially if you have to buy a powerful power supply to run everything. A 700-watt power supply is when power supplies fail, many times when they fail, they will wipe out every part that they're connected to. So they'll destroy your motherboard and your video card and your hard drive all at one shot. So you go and you find this 750-watt power supply for 25 bucks versus like an Antec power supply for $90, and you go, I'm going to save 60 bucks. Well, then you destroy every other component in your computer, and it's bad. So whenever you're going to be buying a power supply, make sure you buy a good quality power supply. Don't go inexpensive on the power supply. Same is true what I found on the motherboards. Buy a good motherboard. Gigabyte, MSI, Asus. Buy a very reputable motherboard, even if it's going to cost you a little bit more money. Because again, one of the problems that I found building computers, building lots, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of computers over the years, is that you can have lots of issues with the motherboard. Not only can it just simply come dead on arrival, but certain parts can be bad. So I've had it where like PCI slots or PCI Express slots are bad. So the motherboard seemed to work good, but then when you plug in cards into the slots, things don't work right. Or RAM slots, I've had that, where one RAM slot out of 4 will be bad. You try to load up the RAM slots with all the RAM, you cause problems. That's what you get when you buy inferior quality motherboards. So buy a good quality power supply, buy a good motherboard. The other thing to realize if you're going to be building your computer is make sure you have enough power for your video card and for your motherboard. So whenever you're going to be building one of these video game PCs, look at what the power requirements are for the motherboard and look what the power requirements are for the video card. That's one thing that happens a lot of times. People look and they say, well, I have this 500-watt power supply. It should be more than enough power. And they plug in the brand new video card, they plug in the motherboard, nothing turns on because there's just not enough power. So do make sure you look at that. The final thing, if you are going to be building your own video game PC, and I've had this issue in the past, is make sure that your video card will fit into your case, right? So the more powerful, the more uber video cards out there can get really large, like stupidly large. Like you're thinking like, oh, it's a large video card. And then you actually pull it out of the box and it's about 3 inches longer than that. So again, one of the issues that I've run into in the real world is you pull out the video card, you go to slot it in, everything theoretically works, except it literally can't fit in the case. It's so big. So that is one of those things that you want to be thinking about. Now, when we start talking about things like GPUs and the video cards, whenever you're going to be buying one, you can either go with a GPU from AMD or a GPU from NVIDIA. Now, what's important is when you're buying a video card is that the GPU, AMD or NVIDIA, is not the video card itself. So NVIDIA and AMD, what they do is they manufacture the GPUs, so graphic processing units. Then other companies purchase the GPUs and then build them onto their boards. So this is important, again, when you're looking to go out and buy like a quality graphics card. Simply because it says NVIDIA on it doesn't mean the manufacturer is worth a damn. Anybody can go out basically and buy NVIDIA GPUs and put it onto their graphics cards. The question is that manufacturer very good? So if you're going to be going out and buying your own graphics card, make sure to look for reviews and all that, because again, AMD and NVIDIA, that is just the GPU, that's not the graphics card. So you can have a very good GPU on a very bad graphics card. get what I'm saying? Now, one thing that comes up that you'll hear a lot about is something called either SLI or crossfire. This is a very, very cool theoretical concept that 3% of the gaming population actually needs, and you probably don't if you're watching this video. Now, what this is this is really cool. Basically, with either Crossfire or SLI, these are the technologies either for AMD or NVIDIA. What you can do is you can combine the power of the GPUs on two different graphics cards. So since the GPU is going through and it's trying to process in order to create the resolution, that you know, the picture that you're looking at, what you can do is you can combine two GPUs in order to make that processing more powerful. So basically they can compute in parallel so that you get more processing power out of it. You slot in two graphics cards, you connect them with a connector, and voila. Now, what I'll tell you with this, again, this is one of those super sexy, amazing things that seems really cool, but again, unless you're building a very expensive machine and you want really like incredibly high power graphics, it's probably not worth it for you. With the graphics cards nowadays, you go out, you buy a $200 graphics card. They're generally relatively powerful as it is, and most gamers, that will be more than enough. But, you know, it depends. If you're going to be running all kinds of video game stuff, maybe you need more. But that's what the SLI or Crossfire is. Do make sure you do all the research on SLI and Crossfire because there are some quirks with that. The next thing you need to be thinking about whenever you're going out to buy these graphics cards, you're going to drop money on them, because you can drop a lot of money on a graphics card. You can drop $1,000, $2,000 on a graphics card alone. Is whenever you're going to be buying a graphics card, make sure the graphics card you're buying is not more powerful than the video games that you're going to be running. This is one of those dirty little secrets about a lot of the video games, is a lot of the video games actually can't push out the amount that the graphics cards can. So basically the graphics cards are significantly more powerful than what the video game needs. So you know, you get a graphics card and you can see and it says, wow, this thing can push out at 4K. This is great. I'm going to get a 4K screen. It's going to be an awesome resolution, all that kind of stuff. And then what happens is you actually start playing your video game and it will only pump out at 1080p. So it doesn't matter if your graphics card can push out at 4K. If the video game itself is hardwired to be able to only do 1080p, then you're kind of stuck at 1080p. So that is one of those things you just got to think about. Another thing to think about just whenever you're dealing with graphics is you will see something called DirectX. Basically, this isn't something huge you have to worry about if you're buying modern graphics cards. Basically, what DirectX is this is a series of APIs that Microsoft has built in to Windows so that games can run better. So basically, when somebody programs a video game, StarCraft 2 or Diablo or Crysis or whatever, that those video games can talk to the graphics card better. So what you're looking at is DirectX capability. So I think right now they're up to DirectX 11. So if you're going to be buying a video game and you look at the requirements and it says this requires DirectX 11, then you just have to make sure that the graphics card that you're running will also be able to support DirectX. DirectX 11. Let's see here. Then beyond that, you get into something called refresh rate and FPS, and this is something to be thinking about. So what refresh rate is how quickly your monitor can refresh. So the lower the refresh rate is, the more of what you're going to see is something called ghosting. So ghosting is kind of where, you know, when like somebody is moving across the screen and you can kind of see lines or trails. So the lower the FPS or lower the refresh rate, the more you'll see that. So that is just something to keep in mind whenever you're going to be dealing with these video game systems. So refresh rate comes from both your graphics card and from your monitor. So you want at least 60 hertz is what most people want, all the way up to 120 hertz. They actually go up to like 240 hertz now. But basically, the faster the refresh rate, the more crisp and clear you're going to be seeing everything going on the monitor. What you have to realize with the refresh rate is that comes both from your graphics card and from your monitor. So that is one thing that you want to be thinking about if you want to start playing more video games and the modern video games, is can your monitor actually support that? Again, one of those very important things to understand. And then what you'll also hear whenever you're talking about the graphics is something called FPS, or frames per second. and that's how many frames you'll see per second of video. So whenever we're talking about video, it may be 15 frames per second or 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second. Basically, the more frames per second that you can see, the clearer and crisper everything will be. How many frames per second you get, that comes from your graphics card, that comes from your CPU, that comes from the overall how fast your computer is. Now, the important thing, again, whenever you're going to be playing a lot of these modern video games, is to understand that since when you're playing the video game, what your computer is doing is basically solving all these mathematical equations, essentially. So the faster and better your PC is, the easier it is for your system to be able to solve those equations, and the better quality graphics and such you will see. And so it's important to understand whenever you're going to be playing video games is there's lots of different settings within the video game to allow you to do things like different resolutions, different refresh rates, all that kind of stuff. So you can have a lower end PC that can still play a video game, but the quality of the graphics and the video is going to be worse. So let's go over to my computer for a second just so I can show you this when we're talking with something like StarCraft 2. So this is StarCraft 2. This is the game that I like to play. And the thing is, like whenever you're dealing with these video games, what you want to do is you want to go over to menu, and then you want to go over and take a look at the options. So in the options, this is where you can take a look at the graphics that you're going to be able to see in the video game. So we can see like the display mode is, full screen. We can go down here, we can take a look at the resolution. So we can see what the resolution is. So, 1920 by 1080. Does it go any higher than that? Then down here we start to see things, and this will make the video game look better or worse. So things like texture quality, so low, medium, high, ultra. So how good will the textures look? The graphics quality, extreme, low, medium, high, ultra, shaders, lighting, shadows, terrain, reflections, effects. So this is why you can play the exact same game on two different PCs, and the game will look significantly different between those two PCs, is because one may have a lot of hardware that allows it to run very well, and the other does not. You get what I'm saying? So basically, this is the kind of thing that you can look at when you're buying video game PCs. So that's really all there is to just talking about these video game PCs. Again, if you want to get into building video games PCs, or if you're a video game aficionado, there are an insane number of forums out there, and there's lots of videos and all that kind of stuff to make the absolute perfect video game system. But when you start building those video game systems, they get very expensive very quickly. When you start looking at somebody with 3 42-inch displays, you've got to buy the 3 42-inch displays and the graphics card that will run it and the RAM that will run it, so on and so forth. So it's one thing to realize is that if you just want to play some of these video games just to blow off steam, you can buy a lot less powerful machine, and it will still run everything pretty well. That's just one of those things to think about. So this was just a short little class on introduction to video game PCs. Again, if you're going to be going out there, yes, you can build a machine that's less expensive than if you buy it. But again, if you build it, then you've got to deal with all that kind of stuff. That's something to think about. Do make sure if you're going to build your machine, buy a good power supply. I'm telling you, buy a good power supply, and I would argue buy a very good motherboard. It's worth the extra couple bucks. And then also look at the measurements for the video card. I'm not even joking with that. I've run into that a couple of times. You pull the video card out of the box, you're like, oh my God, this is a big video card. So just keep in mind whenever you're going to be buying that kind of thing that can run into problems. And then also make sure don't buy or build more hardware than you need. A lot of these video games nowadays, they simply can't run at full 4K at 60 hertz. It's just the fact of the matter. So if you're going to be playing StarCraft 2, you don't need to go out and build a $2,000 machine, because frankly a $2,000 machine isn't going to run the video game any better than about an $800 machine, if you get what I'm saying. So those are some things to think about. The final advice I will give you, the final words of wisdom I will give you, is if you are a parent and you are thinking about buying your kid a video game PC for the holidays, don't. If there is if you ignore everything else I said in this entire video, please listen to me when I say, do not buy your kid a video game PC for the holidays. And the reason is because, again, kids and youngins get very, very, very snooty about their video game PCs. They want very, very specific things, and if they don't get those very specific things, they have a bit of a hissy fit. So what I would argue, if you want to save everybody a lot of pain and misery, if you want your kid to have a good video game PC for the holidays, basically give them cash and allow them to go out and buy it. Because again, when you get really into building a video game PC, there's forums and there's fanboys. It just, again, a 14-year-old will do 100 hours on research on the best video game PC to buy, and if you go out and you buy the wrong one, then there's just going to be tears, if you get what I'm saying. So that, if nothing else, that is the lesson I will give to you. Altaro.com, Altaro.com, if you're dealing with virtualization in a Hyper-V environment. So we're talking about Windows Server 2008 R2, 2012, and 2012 R2. Take a look at Altaro.com. They have a number of Hyper-V backup solutions. They have the free version, which will back up to 2 VMs for free forever. They also have the unlimited version, starting at only $400 per host. I think this is a very good value. So if you are dealing with Hyper-V virtualization and you need a backup solution, take a look at Altaro.com. NerdsWeCanFixThat.com. If you're thinking about starting your own computer services company, but you don't want to have to worry about coming up with a logo and copyright and trademark and all of those kinds of things, you may think about buying into a computer services franchise system. Nerds We Can Fix That is a computer services franchise system. They have 62 franchises throughout the United States. They can franchise in every state other than Hawaii. They also franchise internationally. If you're thinking about starting your own computer services company, you should contact them, fill out the information below, or give them a call. Again, as I will say, franchise systems are great for a lot of people, not so good for others. Always make sure to do your due diligence, but if you're thinking about starting a computer services company anyway, you might as well contact Nerds We Can Fix That to see what they have to say. Veeam.com, Veeam.com. If you just virtualized 100 servers and now you're trying to figure out how to back them up, they have solutions for ESXi, they have solutions for Hyper-V, and as you guys like, they have free stuff. So if you are dealing with a virtualized environment and you're trying to figure out a backup solution, take a look at Veeam.com. Spiceworks.com. These guys have the free network management software, the free mobile device management software, the free community with millions of users. So if you're an IT professional and you need support, Spiceworks is a great place to go. All of their stuff is basically free and just an absolutely great thing. Again, if you have any questions that I don't answer in the show that are technical in nature, we're talking about Active Directory synchronization between sites in remote areas. If you click on the link below this video, that will take you to the Spiceworks community. They have millions of users there that will be able to help you out. So take a look at spiceworks.com. Plixer.com. Plixer deals with NetFlow analytics software. So NetFlow is a component of Cisco equipment that shows you what's going on at the network layer, what devices are talking to what other devices, what kind of network jitter, all of that kind of stuff. So Plixer has a free piece of software called Scrutinizer. Scrutinizer is a free NetFlow network traffic analysis tool. So if you want to play around with NetFlow, if you want to see what's going on with the network layer and you have Cisco equipment, take a look at Plixer.com. Click on the link below this video. It'll bring you to this page where you can download Scrutinizer, the free NetFlow network traffic analysis tool. SchoolyMitchell.com. If you're trying to find better internet or telephone service, or if you're trying to find less expensive internet or telephone service, give Schooly Mitchell a call. Basically what these guys are telecom consultants. You call them, you say what you need for yourself or your client, and they figure out the best option. They'll examine your existing services and review your bills to make sure there are no errors. Then they'll keep an eye on your services moving forward so that everything remains optimized. Because Schooly Mitchell is objective and independent, they have no ties to vendors. You know they are always your best interests in mind. The best part is there is no fee for their services. The only cost is a portion of the shared savings over a set period of time. If they don't find savings, there is no cost to you. Schooly Mitchell. Is managing users and computers on Active Directory too cumbersome? Download SolarWinds' terrific trio of free Active Directory admin tools today and start saving time on those Active Directory management tasks. These free tools help you manage and remove computers and users from Active Directory and allow you to add users in bulk. bulk. The free tools include inactive user account removal tool, enables you to scan Active Directory and optionally remove users who have not logged in for a certain amount of time. Inactive computer account removal tool enables you to scan Active Directory and optionally remove computers that are over a certain number of days old. And user import tool saves time by giving you the ability to create users in bulk using a CSV file. You can even specify the attributes. Also be sure to check out SolarWinds community page, thwack.com, to connect with more than 100,000 IT professionals. So take a look at solarwinds.com for their free and other tools. So for the hands-on review today, I want to talk about the Lenovo Razer X315 gaming desktop PC. So Lenovo sent me this PC over so I could play around with it, tell you guys what I think about it. And overall, it is a pretty good gaming PC, but there are some interesting things about it that you should just keep in mind if you're looking to go out and buy a gaming PC. Now, the one thing that I will tell you is if you're going to go out and you're going to buy any pre-built machine, especially if you're going to be buying a gaming system, is do make sure you buy it from a reputable vendor or manufacturer. Lenovo is one of those companies, to be honest with you, they're one of the companies I've liked for a long time. Lenovo purchased IBM's PC division a long time ago, and they've kept the quality up. So one of the things that I like with their computers is that they all seem to be good and solid, and I don't see a lot of problems. I started to become a fan of ASUS computers a while ago, a couple of years ago, and then what I noticed was that the quality of their equipment seemed to go downhill rather quickly. I have like a $900 desktop that kind of stopped working very well, and monitors that stopped working well, and the whole 9 yards. So one of the things you do have to think about if you're going to be going out and buying any of these pre-built machines, especially for gaming, make sure you buy it from a vendor that you find reputable. Again, I personally, honestly, Lenovo isn't paying me a dime. I personally like Lenovo, always have, but just that's one thing to keep in mind if you're going to be buying one of these gaming machines. So let's go over to the computer and just kind of take a look at the specifications for this thing. So this is the Razer X315. If we go over to shop.lenovo.com, you can take a look at it here. And here's where they tell you all the fancy, cool things about the X315. Jaw-dropping style, as I'll show you in a second. Okay. Yeah, it's not what I would call a jaw-dropping style. High-performance graphics. It does have an AMD R9 graphics card in there, or GPU, and I found that actually works very well, and I'll show you the specs on that. That supports up to 4K resolution and HDMI. Seems a pretty good thing. 7.1 channel surround sound. It has 12 gigs of memory, so that's one thing to think about. In DDR3, one of the things I like with this is it has 1600 megahertz memory. So that's one thing. Again, you guys always, or a lot of people always focus on the size of the RAM, not necessarily the speed. So what I like with this is actually got a decent speed on that memory. And then for the drive, they have a 2 terabyte hybrid drive. So it's a 2 terabyte of platter space with an 8 gig solid state drive. And what I found with that using it is that works very well for normal PC functions. For gaming functions, it doesn't really seem to work that great. It seems like it takes a long time for games to load. Like once games have loaded, then they're very fast, then they're speedy. Actually getting the games to load seems to take a long time. And again, the systems that I normally use are all solid state drives, so I think that there's probably some issue there. You then get the gaming keyboard and mouse we'll take a look at. Super speed USB 3.0 with always on USB charging. That is a nice thing, is this always on USB charging is that you're able to power your USB devices even when your desktop computer is turned off. So if you use your desktop computer to charge your iPad or your Android device or something like that, that's nice. So like a lot of times if you turn off your computer, then your phone or whatever stops charging. So those are pretty good things. Now the price they have on it here, if we go over, right now they're having a Black Friday sale, but it's anywhere from $949 to $999. That seems high. If we go over to newegg.com, we'll see that's $789. What I would say with Lenovo is with this, I think you're buying a lot of brand name and manufacturer quality. Again, Lenovo builds things very well, but at the $800 mark, I'm not gonna lie to you. You know what I'm saying? Like, man, once you start spending $800 on a desktop computer, you can probably build one less expensive, to be completely honest with you. But again, it's one of those things, you gotta build it. But that's kind of your decision on there. If we go through, it'll tell you some more of the specs. You know, the AMD 3.7 gigahertz, 64-bit, 4 megs L2 cache. That is very nice. One of the things that's really nice on this, and to make sure whenever you're going to be buying any modern computer, is make sure you buy something with 802.11ac. I cannot say enough about 802.11ac. Once you go 802.11ac wireless, you never want to go back. This is just the cat's meow. It is just an absolutely beautiful thing. Really, really, really good speed. If we go over then also, we take a look at the AMD Radeon R9 specs. It'll give us all the information. DirectX 12 compatible, PCI Express version 3.0. It does do 4K resolution. It does HDMI at 4K resolution, so on and so forth. So overall, it seems to be a very good mid-tier gaming system from what I can see. This is the kind of gaming machine Eli the computer guy would buy. The reason is because Eli the computer guy generally plays things like StarCraft 2 and Diablo 3. So yeah, I'm not exactly the coolest video gamer out there, but it works very well for those. So this is the Lenovo. This is the desktop itself, and as you can see, I would argue about this whole idea about jaw-dropping design. I think it's good enough. I mean, again, this is one of those things like I would have on my I would have on my desk. I wouldn't feel sheepish about having it on my desk, which probably, you know, whether or not that means it's the coolest thing in the world, I don't know. Now, the interesting thing is I want to show you guys, whenever you're going to be buying any of these gaming machines, is you should always try to take a look at the inside and see what you're actually dealing with. One of the issues whenever you're buying, especially pre-built machines, is the question is can you upgrade the thing? Because that's one of the problems. Like, a lot of people, you know, they don't really want to build a computer, they just want to buy one, but then once they buy it, they want to customize it. The problem is with a lot of these pre-built machines, there's just not a whole hell of a lot you can customize. So if you take a look at this, I think the specifications say you can upgrade up to 32 gigs of RAM, so that's a good thing. But you can see that there's basically no slots in here to be able to install any of their cards. They have a PCI Express 8 slot, but that is it. So if you want to add you know, an additional card, that is not going to be available for you. So that is one thing to think about. And then also with the power supply that they give you, they only have one additional power connector. So even if you wanted to add, let's say, a couple of hard drives or a couple of other things in here, you only have one power connector. So that's one thing to think about. So if you're going to be, if you even think about upgrading this machine for anything, you're probably going to have to buy a new power supply. And again, down here, if you take a look, as far as expansion ports go, you have one PCI Express 8 slot there, and that is it. So that is one thing. If you're going to be buying this thing, there's not really a whole lot you can do with it. Now, overall, to be honest with you, using the machine, it seemed like a pretty good machine. So I used it to play my little StarCraft 2, my Diablo 3, and that kind of thing. And what I found was it was a decent gaming machine for somebody like me. And again, that's one thing to think about. And I'm not trying to soft pedal this at all. But you know, whenever you hear about people talking about video gaming anymore, it seems like everybody has to have like 3 4K displays with some kind of insane surround sound, you know, with total in-depth whatever. Well, there's a lot of folks like me who just want to play a little StarCraft 2 or a little Diablo 3 and then go back and do your work. And so what I would argue with this particular desktop is this is a very good desktop PC that has the capabilities to allow you to run modern games. If that makes sense. Like, if it was me and I didn't want to build my own computer, and I still wanted Windows 8, and I wanted to be able to buy a machine that could play games, I would buy this machine. I really want to stress, though, even with the Lenovo folks, you know, if I wanted a gaming machine, if I wanted a gaming rig, I don't think this is the one I would go for, to be honest with you. The specs on it are okay, but they're not great. When you look at the price point, you know, Newegg coming in at $800, even on Lenovo, all the way up to $1,000. You can probably do better at building your own. And then the lack of customization options. I can't believe a gamer wants to buy this thing. Again, me, who does, you know, YouTube videos and then wants to play a little StarCraft 2, good machine. Gamer, not so much. Oh, I hope I ever get another Lenovo machine again. I really like Lenovo. Again, very good build quality, but there we go. So that is one of the things that you want to be thinking about whenever you buy these gaming machines is, you know, where do you fit on the whole gaming spectrum? Do you want a machine that is good enough to play games at a decent level, and you don't get any real lag or stuttering or any of that? Or do you want something that can display 4K monitors doing all kinds of insane stuff? That's up to you. This is a solid desktop PC that can also play games, is where I would slot this thing at. So this question comes from Cat E. I'm 32 and work in marketing automation for one of the IAC companies. I have worked with tech my entire career and have always been the geekiest of the non-geeks. After years and years of having a few toes in IT for various reasons, I'd like to stop messing around and go all in. Since I'm old as hell, I have a few questions. Okay. First of all, if you were 72, you would be old as hell. 32 is not old. Let me just debunk that myth right there. 32 is not a bad age. The only reason 32 would be a bad age is if you want to go to Silicon Valley and work with all those nutcase little 22-year-olds that all think, you know, working 24 hours a day is a really cool thing. Otherwise, 32 ain't bad. Honestly, I mean, all facetiousness aside, once you hit like 42, it gets a little harder to be new into this profession, simply because by the time you're 42, most people expect you're going to be management level or more advanced. And so, you know, whenever you present yourself to somebody and the expectations don't match what they think you should be, it always gets a little confusing. But again, that's maybe at 42. Obviously, it'll get worse at 52, and you're screwed at 62. But 32 is not bad. You're still a young person. And again, any IT or real business environment is not going to care. When you hear about all of this age discrimination, again, it is these startup companies that are basically using these young people as slave labor, making them work 100 hours a week, and that's it. But I mean, again, like I say, in the real world, 32 is no big deal. Anyways, so I have a bachelor's degree in business administration, so I'm not sure if I can supplement it with certs or if I need to break down and do another degree. That being said, do you still feel the same about training versus education in this context or even in general? So this person is 32, they already have a bachelor's degree, they want to go into IT, and so they're asking, do they need to go back and get a different degree, or do they need to get IT certifications? Now, again, context is everything. Context is everything. There's no one right answer. And so the answer I'm going to give you here, you're probably going to be surprised with. I would say in this environment that you should go back and get your degree. The reason for that is because you're not telling me what you want to do in IT. You're not saying, I started working with Microsoft servers, I fell in love, and all I want to do is Microsoft servers. Then you should go for a certification. You're not saying, I started programming in Python and the heavens opened up and I realized what my place in this universe is. Then I would say you don't get certifications in Python, but you can self-study Python. What you're saying is, I've done a lot of stuff in IT and I'd really like to focus on IT, and you know, I want to do some of that computer stuff. I want to get paid doing computers, right? And anytime anybody says they want to get paid for doing computers, go get a degree. The reason is because you don't know enough about the technology field to know what you should specialize in. Again, if you know what you want to do, I love Linux. I love Microsoft. I've started using Arduino boards, and I think I can build a business off of home automation, right? If you know what you want to do, if you're like, then do certifications. If you're like, I want to do computers, Eli, computers, then go get a degree. Because the biggest thing the degree will get you is it will give you the overview of all of these different things in technology, and then you can figure out what you want to focus on. And that really is an important thing. I would say with what you're doing, if you have a bachelor's degree, you can get a master's degree in IT with any bachelor's degree. It's sad. I'm not going to go into that. But you can, so I would say go get a master's degree. So this way, you'll get a master's degree, which will be better on your resume. You'll get the master's degree in IT, which means you'll learn about technology, and then you can figure out what you want to focus on. The other thing is, then he goes on to part 2, should I even bother? I love tech and think my business-based career history will allow me to contribute perspective and innovation to the industry. But I have a lot of ground to cover and know there are already so many IT minds in the workforce. Oh boy, oh boy, oh. Are you a boyo? Boyo, I don't know, cat. Is cat a boy or a girl name? Boyo, girlyo. Oh, oh my God. If I had a dime for every time I heard a statement about as dumb as that, that is like one of those statements that sends every geek up the wall. Because what you have to understand, to be a high-level geek, to be a paid geek, to be a reputable geek, it's rough. It is very hard in our field. We're talking about a lot of stress. We're talking about just a lot of brain power. We're talking about multitasking. There is a lot to our field, right? And again, I don't put down florists. Like when I say you should go off and be a florist, I'm not dismissing florists as being some kind of lowly profession. I'm just saying simply that you shouldn't be in ours because ours is stressful and brutal and nasty and short and all that kind of stuff, right? And so one of the issues we get into is we get all these business people, all these liberal arts that I have ideas. I have ideas. And all the geeks are like, do you know what it takes to take your idea and actually turn it into something physical? It takes a lot, right? So you have all these people like, I was on the crapper this morning and I realized what the world needs. And people think that that is valuable. And that is not valuable. That is almost worthless, right? It is the ability to take that idea and turn it into something. Turn it into infrastructure. Turn it into a device. Turn it into a piece of software. That is what is hard. It really is. I mean, that's one of the reasons that the whole startup world sends me up the wall, is because they all believe the idea is the important thing, and then the grind, well, that's something that you outsource to whoever will do it. And the reality, again, I've built a number of tech businesses at this point, been around the world, and let me tell you, it is the writing the code, it is running the cable, it is bringing the servers online, it's doing all that kind of stuff is the really hard part. So your business-based career history, nobody cares about. And believe me, if you bring that horse crap up to a real geek, that conversation and that relationship is going to be over, because they're going to look at you like you're a complete damn idiot, which they should. So again, no harm, no foul. We all have our own things, and if you want to stay in business, stay in business. But business and tech are two different worlds. What you think of it, because again, I mean, that's the whole thing. Like business people. Because in business and other professions, there is no right answer. It's really amazing to see like these other professions come into the tech world, right? Because for these other professions, you can argue your way through a situation. You can argue yourself into being right. You can be completely wrong, but if you have a good argument, or if you have a good reasoning or rationale, you can make it all right. You can make it good. You can make things perfect simply by being able to change perspective, right? An Active Directory server doesn't give a damn about your perspective, doesn't care about your philosophy, doesn't care about your religion, doesn't care about who you know. It very simply, is the checkbox checked off? Is remote web worker checked off or not? If it is, VPN services work. If it doesn't, VPN services won't work. It doesn't matter how much you argue with an Active Directory server, it's just gonna sit there and buzz at you. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, just never that part too. Yeah, just never say that. Just never say that. So again, I would say you should go for that master's degree in IT. The master's degree. Don't do a bachelor's, because you've already got a bachelor's. A lot of people go like back. I want to go back for a second bachelor's. Why? No. You can go for a master's in IT, so go for a master's in IT. That'll get you some of the IT education. It'll give you a bigger worldview. Plus, it'll give the master's degree people like, and go from there. Don't spend too much money. Make sure to go to, here in the United States, go to a public school, not a private school. Yeah, and you should be good to go. So this question comes from Max G. I was wondering out of interest about printer security. If home versions of Windows operating system are being used and every device is connected to a Wi-Fi network, what are the possible security options for a network printer? I've noticed that everyone has printing permissions by just installing the printer driver that is available from the manufacturer. So this is an interesting question in the modern world. Basically, how to deal with printer security. Let's say if you want to be able to lock down a printer, not allow certain people to use it or only allow authenticated people to use it, how do you deal with that? So back in the old days, in the 90s, right? If you wanted to share a printer on the network, you actually had to connect that printer physically to a print server, and then that print server would allow network access to that printer. So basically, you would connect either with a USB cable or I don't even know what the hell those things were called, those big old printer cables. You would connect the printer to the server. In the server, you would set up the sharing and permissions. And so whatever configurations you put in for sharing and permissions, that is what you could use. So if certain users were allowed to print, then they would be allowed to print. And if certain users were blocked from printing, then they wouldn't be able to print, right? So, as time goes on, print servers become smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and they get so small, they actually are now built into most modern printers. So most modern printers have a little RJ45 port in them, and you can connect them directly to your LAN. So it's important to understand that little RJ45 connector in there, that connects to a print server. So the little thing in there, and the little thing in that printer, used to be a big old machine. Well, the issue is when they shrink these print servers down and down and down and down to the point they can fit in the size of a quarter, now they don't have the functionality that they used to have, since they're not necessarily Active Directory servers or any of that. Basically, it provides printer services for the network, but a lot of times you don't get all of those nice little security options, right? You don't get to block people or give priority or do any of that kind of thing. So the easiest thing to do, the easiest thing and least expensive thing to do, is what you do is you take the printer and you go old school on that printer. You unplug the network connection. So you unplug the network connection from it entirely. You take the USB cable, you plug it in to a normal computer, most likely a Windows computer, and then what you do is you share out that printer on the network, and then you configure permissions that way. So, depending on whether you're in Active Directory or which version of Windows you're using, that's a whole bunch different. But by connecting it to a computer and using that computer as a print server, that is how you can give permissions and security and all that kind of stuff to a printer. So especially nowadays, this can be very useful. Like if you have employees who are using a printer. So let's say you have a very expensive, very fast printer. So a lot of these companies now go out, they buy an $8,000 LaserJet printer so that they can print things very quickly. Well, the question comes up, what if one of your employees comes in, they're the leader of a Boy Scout troop, and they decide they're going to print 50 handbooks using your laser printer? And that costs money. I mean, that's real money. That's $10 in paper, that's $15 in toner, and they're just going to use that because the printer is available. So in those circumstances, if you don't want the printer connected directly to the network, if you want some security there, you connect the printer to your server, preferably an Active Directory server, and then you can configure all the security and permissions and all that kind of stuff. If you're dealing with home environments, so you're dealing with home versions of the Windows operating system, again, you can still plug it in and you go in and you look at sharing and permissions and security and all that. You can do more different configurations there. If you want to dive into the Linux world, right, if you want to get all fancy geek, you can dive into the Linux world. There's lots of print server options for Linux servers, and then again, you can go in and deal with the minute security detail that way. So that is the option. So if you want your printer to be open for anybody to use, then basically you just plug the printer directly into the network, and away you go. If you want to deal with security, plug the printer into a computer and then set up permissions and sharing and all that through the computer itself. So for the final thoughts for today, I want to talk about why all my videos are introductory level videos. videos, right? So I have been getting crap about this basically ever since I came to YouTube, where people come and they would look at all my videos and go, oh, this guy really doesn't know anything because all of his videos are introductory. Introduction to building a computer, introduction to computer repair, introduction to tuning up a computer, introduction to servers, introduction to DNS, introduction to DHCP. He obviously doesn't know what the hell he's talking about because everything's introductory, right? And that is one of those kind of complaints that people that don't understand what the hell is going on in the IT world say, right? It's one of those things where it's like that mentality where people don't want to use dummies books because they feel like, oh, if I read a dummies book, it means I am not a real technology professional. What I need to do is I need to get one of those technology Bibles and read that thing, and that proves I'm a professional. And if I read a dummies book, that means I am just an amateur. When in reality, it's basically the exact opposite. You have all the amateurs running out and buying those big old, 1,000-page Bibles, and then you have the real professionals going out and for 30 bucks picking up a dummies book and going, what the hell am I looking at here, right? So one of the reasons that all of my videos are introductory level, just so you guys understand, is because basically everything in technology, as I've said time and time and time again, is relatively simple. How we become real high-skill professionals is by turning or taking lots and lots and lots of simple concepts, ideas, gadgets, and stuff, and turning those things into very complex systems, right? So understanding the Ethernet for a networking paradigm is a very simple thing to understand. I mean, if you're going to use it, not if you have to design it. You need Cat5 cables with RJ45 connectors. Those go into switches or hubs. Those goes into routers. Those go into wireless access points. Basically, understanding what an Ethernet network is a pretty simple concept. Well, then if you go over and then you look at TCP/IP v4, version 4, and you learn about that, TCP/IP v4 unto itself is a pretty simple concept. And then when you're learning about TCP/IP v4, then you're going to need to learn about DNS and DHCP. And DNS is a pretty simple concept, and DHCP is a pretty simple concept. And then as soon as you learn those, then you're going to have to start learning about servers. And a server is a pretty simple concept. And then if you go and you need to build an FTP server or a DNS server or a web server, again, those are pretty simple concepts. So what we're doing is we're taking pretty simple concepts and we're tying in all of those relatively simple concepts to create something that is very complicated. So building a computer is simple. That's introductory level. Installing an operating system onto that computer is simple. That's an introductory level. Installing Apache or IIS onto that server, onto that computer is, again, relatively simple. Building an HTML web page in order to put onto that web server is, again, relatively simple. Creating the FTP services on that server is, again, relatively simple. So what you do is you take all of these relatively simple things and then turn them into complex systems. So what real professionals do, just so you guys understand how real professionals really do this stuff, right? And why I don't do more advanced classes is because it's very difficult to teach advanced classes because, frankly, most of the really advanced work that real IT professionals do, it's difficult to do a class for. Because remember, whenever we're doing projects, we're always walking into unique situations. What is the legacy equipment? What are the resources that are available? What is your particular skill level? What is the skill level of the other support people? All of that kind of stuff. You take all of that together and you use that information to build out whatever monster network that you're going to be creating. But that set of circumstances is going to be different in every single different environment. And so that's where the advanced topics come in, is when you walk into those very different environments and figure out what to do. And so how real IT professionals go about it is we learn all of these introductory level things, introductory to DNS and DHCP and servers and Linux and Unix and all that kind of stuff. Then we walk into the environment and we have a very solid introductory level skill base. We see the environment and then we go, okay, I have an idea of what I need to do. Let me go to Google, make sure I understand what I'm talking about, Okay, now this is how we are going to deploy in this particular setup. This is what we're going to do. So that is one thing I really want you guys to understand, because a lot of new people, again, what they do is they try to dive in and learn all this ultra complicated stuff. And the reality is most of that ultra complicated stuff you're never going to use. Even, I have my MCSE, I train for the different MCSE. And what I can say through that training is, in that stuff, they teach you so many things that you will never actually use in the real world. I mean, even looking at something like trusts, I mean, if you go for the MCSE and you go for Active Directory infrastructure, trust relationships is a huge thing, multi-domain forests and trees and all that kind of stuff. How many people actually do deal with that stuff in the real world? Not many people actually deal with that stuff in the real world. So if you focus on that really high level stuff, you're going to say, Eli, I want to learn advanced topics. I don't want to learn this introductory stuff. I don't want to learn local security policies. I want to learn trees. Well, the problem is you put all of that energy, all that focus, all that time into learning that very complicated stuff, and then what you're going to realize is nobody's actually ever going to hire you to do that, and only a very small percentage of anybody who deals with Microsoft equipment ever does that kind of stuff. And so you've spent all that time and energy to learn something that, frankly, most people don't really care about. Well, whereas if you learn all of the lower level stuff, again, that introductory, mid-level information, then when a job comes along and they say, oh, in this environment we do have trust relationships, you can go, oh, well, I know not enough about Microsoft stuff. I can learn about trust relationships and set that up without actually knowing about it now. So if that makes any sense. So again, like I said, I get a lot of crap teaching you guys stuff about introductory. But again, what I'll tell you is each subject within IT, if it is taught properly, should be a very simple concept. DNS unto itself is a very simple concept. DHCP unto itself is a very simple concept. IIS or Apache or any of that unto themselves are very simple concepts. It's when you tie all them together into a big infrastructure, that's when it gets very complex. But all the components of that complexity are very simple. And so that's why I teach you all these introductory level classes, because I want to give you that base level so that when you walk into that more advanced environment, you know enough so that you can go and research and figure out what it is you need to know into that environment. You don't necessarily need to know it walking in the door, if that makes any sense. So that's the final thought for the day. Don't be shy about using dummies books. Don't be shy about introductory level classes and all that kind of stuff, because yeah, in the real world, that's how we get paid. So as you guys know, I'm involved with a lot of different little side projects, basically little things that I play around with and see where they'll go. Right now I have the Patreon campaign for a geekier world. I have geekbraindump.com that is trucking along. And one thing not enough of you guys know about is my vlog channel. So my vlog channel has actually been around for about 2 years, and that is the place where I try to show you guys kind of like the more real world of technology or so. So basically this is where I do all of my little vlogging things. So like when I was off at VidCon, I talked about it. This is where I have a video of me dropping my iPad mini 3 floors in an oozable chubby case. Basically, this is where I show you guys all of the stuff that kind of goes on in behind the scenes. If we go over here to the videos, you can just see all of this different stuff, Interop, New York, all those kind of things. So I have been doing this vlog channel, again, like I say, for about 2 years now, and it's kind of been one of those side projects. I'll do like 3 videos in one day, and then I won't do any videos for another 2 weeks. It's just kind of one of those things. And so I have decided that I'm actually going to start using it more and more going into the future to do more content that doesn't fit nicely into the episodic thing that I am now doing with Eli, the Computer Guy YouTube channel. So one thing I found in the YouTube world is that whenever you create a channel, all the content you create for that channel should be very similar. People like things that are the same, only slightly different. They don't want to see a whole mosh of different types of content. content. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep Eli the Computer Guy YouTube channel, basically with this episodic content as I've been doing, and then continue with Eli Computer Guy Live, the Eli Computer Guy Live YouTube channel, to basically dump in all of this other random stuff that doesn't really fit in anywhere else. One of the reasons for that is because you guys have been sending me lots and lots and lots of questions, right? So since I started asking for questions to answer on my show, you guys have been emailing me lots and lots and lots of questions. And obviously, I can only get to 2 questions on every show, or the show will be too long. But you guys keep sending more and more and more and more and more questions in. I've been trying to figure out how can I try to answer these questions for you guys that I can't get to on the show. And I thought, oh, you know what I can do is I can put that on the vlog channel. So if you're not a subscriber for the vlog channel, go over again, Eli Computer Guy Live on YouTube channel, because I'm going to start using it more and more for things like all these questions. I mean, this is like 100 different questions here that people want answered. So I'll do little videos on these, some more like little review things that don't fit into the episodic, all of that kind of stuff. So that's one of my side little projects. It's been going pretty well, up to like 9,200 subscribers. But if you want to see more of, again, like I say, the behind the scenes stuff, go over, take a look at that channel, because that is where it will be. And all the questions that I don't get to on the episodes, I'm going to start trying to answer there.